Hello, welcome to today's session of Tech Talent Talk. We are your hosts, Oliver and Birgit, and we have the series to bridge the gap between recruitment and engineering. Birgit, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Birgit, and I work as a leadership coach and engineering leader, and I advise people about creating high-performing teams through culture.
I'm Oliver. I do recruitment for about 10 years, and with my own company, Press Forward, I support startups with talents in tech and sales. But we are not alone today. We have a guest. It's Bhupinder. Birgit, do you want to tell us something about our guest today?
Yeah, our today's topic is interview champion, and Bhupinder is our guest today, aka Dynamic Singh. He's an engineering leader from Berlin with over a decade of experience in tech. He has worked at an early stage startup, scaleups, and also tech unicorns and Fortune top 100 companies. Bhupinder has interviewed more than 150 engineers and also has given over 200 interviews in his career so far. His first book, Interview Champion, is coming out soon, and this is also what we're talking about, which aims to help engineers unlock their full potential for tech interviews. Bhupinder, please tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for the nice introduction. So I wrote this book, and it's been a journey. It's been 3 years of constant effort of writing this book, and all started in February 2020 when the whole world was going and spinning. I don't want to say the word, you know why. uh, don't want this to be censored by LinkedIn algorithms. So a lot of organizations were doing well and a lot of organizations were not doing well, and so a few opportunities came my way, and unluckily I failed those interviews, basically, and not because of my technical skills or anything. I failed it because one of the interviews I got a feedback that I was speaking a bit faster, and the person was not able to understand me properly, and I was very surprised to that feedback, because in whole my career I have got feedback from my managers that I'm a good communicator. I do communication very well, effectively in the team. So I was surprised because I was also taking interviews at that time as a senior engineer, software engineer, and I became curious because that was three back-to-back organizations which I got failed for the interviews. And for a tech company, it takes 2 months on an average to for like if you have 4 to 6 rounds of interview depending on the size of the organization. And yeah, I asked a lot of my friends who are in HR, who recruit as well, and yeah, then I took it as a challenge, and I told to myself, like, now I need to get into some of the good organizations which I consider good. One of the few FANG organizations. I'm always passionate about fintech, so wanted to get into like companies like Klarna, Revolut, and so on. And uh, and it took like, so we were started in February, and I got the job, like started getting job offer letters, and I accepted my offer in August. So you can imagine how long it took. So
It
over the
was a
time,
long
I
time, yeah. Like
yeah.
let's imagine let's take the setting, because we have a different setting from now. I know that a lot of people struggle to find a job for months
Yeah.
because currently we have like some sort of economic crisis. But back then, even though we had Corona, because the crisis kind of just started going on, we still had a lot of companies who were like about growth, which means they hired
Exactly.
and hired and hired, which also means not many people actually experienced to like needing to create so many applications for
Yeah.
getting hired. So, for example, my average was like the maximum that I needed to do was 30 applications. And for me, application was full-time job. And like after a month, I know that I had a job. Yeah, I did it repeatedly. You can check my LinkedIn. So I had this kind of experience. And even though you kind of fuck up your CV, you still would be able to get a job. Yeah. So this is why I was kind of curious for you, Bhupinder, to have a couple of months like this kind of
The reason
tell us
is
more about that. What was the shift that you figured out? What exactly was it?
The reason is like the more higher salaries you are looking for, the opportunities are quite slim, and that sector, the more you earn, the more the less companies you have who can offer you those kind of salaries, right? So I was looking for like good companies to work in. I'm not necessarily was more concerned about the salaries, in the sense, of course you would make what you make, more than what you make right now, of course that's always the case. But I pointed out, like, I want to work for, let's say, Klarna, Revolut, Amazon, and companies like that. And I interviewed after, I think it was May. I interviewed for 6 organizations, and I got 5 offer letters later on. So by August, I had, like a couple of offer letters, and then I had choice. Some were matching my expectations, some were not matching my expectations, because at the end of the interview, it's decided how much they will offer, right? They can give you a 20,000, 30,000 range, rough range, but who knows what you will land into, right? So that went well. But that whole journey of, like trying to understand that this interview, let's say hiring manager interviews, what it takes, uh, tech interview, coding interview, or system design interview, how to do it well, and interviews like which people take it so lightly, like cultural interviews or team check, vibe check interviews, as some companies call it, right? Those are so important, and they contribute to your whole journey of hiring. And I got hired. I was lucky, and and a lot of hard work, early mornings, waking up at 5 a.m. and preparing for those interviews, because these are high stake organizations, right? They expect quite a lot from you, and you need to brush up your skills, and that takes time. And every organization has different requirements, like depending upon the role, right? So what led me to write this book was, so I was meditating, and I thought, like, if I, being a senior engineer who is taking interviews, could struggle in the terms of other rounds which are not technical or other things, what about the people who are just starting in the industry, right? They have no clue about what goes into get into a company. And that's where I started writing this book, and it's been a journey. It took 3 years, so I have switched off within 3 years as well, and I have seen it work for me. The chapters I wrote, I gave it to my friends who work at Google, Microsoft, Spotify, HelloFresh, companies like this, and they were switching jobs at that time, and it worked for them. And whatever feedback I got, like, this is not very nice, you could write it better, and so on. So the book is 13 chapters. It's very research oriented. It's not like I just sat one day and wrote the book. I took my time, 3 years, to put it in a way that it comes across that a book that works. And I have seen it work for myself. I have seen it work for my friends, and also my mentees whom I mentor. So yeah, it's been a journey. So yeah.
So you mentioned that, like, what would it mean for new people who are starting out in this industry? What would it mean for them? Let me ask a question. Do you think that our interview system is bad? Do you think we should do it differently?
I mean, it depends also, right? For example, if someone is starting into an industry, let's say we have an organization which is a startup, they would want a junior engineer come into their role. Let's say it's a small team, and I have worked at a startup as well, and we were a 10 people team, right? So the expectation is that this person will come up and they will spread their hands everywhere and get the things done, whatever comes across their way. the expectation is different. But if you are starting up at a mid-sized company, then the expectation is different. Then they will probably give you some training. There will be someone who will mentor you and things like that. So it depends what kind of company you are aiming at. And the system, I would say, it could be improved, because a lot of companies just do interviews and they will not even care at the end to send you a feedback that what went wrong or what could be improved, like a critical feedback. Most of the time I had to ask the recruiters. So yeah.
I want to say so much here because as a recruiter, I feel I should add some things here. Just some observations from my side. I also think the interview process in many companies is broken, or many industries, and I think it's getting even worse. From the discussions that I see, they are HR people and recruiters discussing about using AI to write job descriptions in order to save, the 10 or 15 minutes it would take to do that manually. But the job description done right is the most important text in this entire process, because it formulates the expectations towards the candidates regarding this specific role, defines the responsibilities and how this role interacts with other parties within the company. And if you just use ChatGPT to write a proper text, you miss out on this opportunity and to really let the reader, meaning the applicant, know what it's all about. And if you do this right, you could use the role description and then to even formulate certain qualities you might look for in the candidate. And I'm not just talking about hard skills. Hard skills can be easily acquired. It just takes a couple of months to learn a certain framework or to learn a programming language. And after all, we're talking of engineers. If they cannot learn that, they're not engineers, at least from my perspective. They're also missing out on the chance of defining the soft skills properly, which very often determine if someone will be successful in an organization or not. And it's also linked to values, of course, and the vision. If I leave that to AI to write this text for me, I miss out on a very big chance. What I also see is that during the interview stages, expectation management is poorly done in lots of organizations. After the initial interview, the recruiter might say things like, "Oh yeah, there are 3 to 4 rounds. You can expect a technical talk. You can expect a coding challenge. You can expect an in-deep cultural interview, whatever." But this is it. And then you get the invite for the next stage, and you don't really know what it's all about. You can just guess from the title, cultural interview. What would that mean? Or coding challenge, whatever. And you're not really prepared as an applicant.
And if I may add, often, even though you get like someone tells you what the path would be, often it's actually not this path. Because it's
yeah.
Go ahead.
And this is even worse, because someone at the end of a certain stage, or maybe in between, you will receive a message that, "Oh, we have just decided to add another round." No explanation given. You don't know if this is a good thing. You don't know if this is a bad thing. You don't know if this role suddenly became more important, or you as a candidate are being perceived differently. You don't know if they consider you for something else than you actually applied, and this is the reason why they needed to add another round. So I feel expectation management in recruiting processes is really, really key. I saw lots of recruiters or hiring managers promising things to candidates which are not consistent. And when I, as a recruiter, interview people, they always trace back their their mood of being unsatisfied within this company to the interview process that might happen 1 or 2 or 3 years ago, saying they promised me this and that. They said I'm allowed to do that. I will learn this. I will work in that team. I will work on that product, whatever. And then suddenly it never happened because maybe the hiring manager failed to align with the recruiter. Maybe the peer failed to document what has been discussed. And at the end of the recruiting process, the hiring manager didn't meet with the recruiter didn't meet with a peer, whatever. This happens a lot in organizations which are rather small and young, like startups, but it can also happen in mid-sized companies. From my experience, if the company has reached a certain maturity stage, using properly defined processes and tools to document that, the likelihood is a bit lower than to suck in expectation management. But it's not guaranteed.
Yeah, I
We
think what you
are talking about expectation management, and we also were talking about soft skills and also about culture fits. Bhupinder, would you like to tell us a little bit about the content of the book? What can we expect from the book?
So yes, so book is basically I made it in a way that it becomes a go-to guide for any candidate. So from the second they think of they want to get a job, either it's for leveling up to another role or getting their first job. So it helps you guide in terms of what it will take from the perspective of their mindset, from the perspective of their skills, from the perspective of what needs to be done, what not needs to be, what not to be done. Like there's also not to do's in the book for every round. And this is like 13 chapters, starting from the introduction to how to get your first call, you're reaching the recruiters, or if someone has reached to you on LinkedIn, how to respond properly, and how to like get into a way, like not writing like 10 pages of messages and getting back to them, keeping it short and simple and crisp, and hopping on a call and understand more about the role. And for example, for startups, you have generally 4-stage process. Like you could have a call with CTO, a code project, or a technical interview, and then finally offer, right? But for a big companies, you could have call with the HR, then engineering manager round, coding project round, then coding project review round, then there's the team interview, culture interview, and then there's an offer, right? So, and some even try to do it more steps, right? There will be system design interview, let's say. So this book has this book basically addresses all kind of rounds and tells you to do, how to behave, how to prepare, how to do things for every kind of interviews. And it takes 2 months usually to go through an interview process, but a lot could happen in 2 months. Like you could get sick, you could have some urgent issues going in your life, then you probably lose that rhythm, and you could have many interview processes going on, which would, in one company you could be in the 3rd round, for the other company you would be in the 5th round, right? Then how would you align your brain? So every chapter is like 15 minutes read, and then you pick it up, and then within 15 minutes you can align and understand what needs to be done for this round. So yeah.
When I work with clients, so companies who are hiring, I always advise them that recruitment is about pace. It's about momentum. If you manage to let pass 2 or 3 weeks between interview rounds, this is not going to work. The candidate will have forgotten everything. You might have forgotten everything, even despite you are taking down some good notes. It like the impression and the human touch, the relationship, just disappears.
Yeah, but that's true. But for, let's say, for big companies, if you talk about, let's say, Google or Amazon, right? Google gives you a preparation like list. Needs to be prepared, and you can tell them, I will interview in 3 months now, and then you can pace your own interview. Sometimes people are on holiday, it's summer, right? So you cannot do anything about it. So this book deals to help the candidates to be prepared in whatever scenario it is. And life is not perfect, so our interviews, they are not also perfect, so but we can try.
As a recruiter, I'm wondering, what's your perspective on cultural differences?
Oh, that's a good point, because for the cultural differences, I mean, differences, I would say they're also power for the team, in terms of they help your team to think diversely and come up with new ideas and act differently for same situations, because everyone has a different background. But I would also recommend, there's a book called Culture Map. If the audience have not read it,
That's
they
a good
should
one.
read it. They should read it, because then you would understand why certain people from certain countries or regions behave in a certain way for a simple thing. And for you, it might be, oh, it's okay. And for them, it could be a big thing,
Yeah.
And that's nothing to do with they're a good person or a bad person. It's just the culture influences your personality. And you need to make sure that it doesn't happen when you're working in a big team or in a big company, and you're targeting one common goal. So yeah.
I would also
Yeah.
still advise organizations to hire diverse, because I have seen teams who are very homogenic and who and this is very curious to me that this actually happens, that these people or these organizations are those organizations who have the slowest technical adaptation rate with the teams who are the least diverse. Yeah. This is why Bhupinder is right when you say you bring in new ideas, and when you are diverse, you have different ideas, which means you talk about it, which means you do research about it, and then you figure out, oh, there's actually a really nice technical thing that we could try, and then the team is discussing it. Yeah, there may be some conflicts, also maybe some personal conflicts, but this is also about the organization, also for coaches to keep it maintained, yeah, so that the team can discuss it and come to a solution and conclusion, yeah, later on.
My question was actually aiming at cultural differences between the interview process. And what I had I mean, considering that you have a certain geographical background, the recruiter has a certain geographical background or cultural background, however you call it, then you meet the engineering manager who comes from somewhere else. Then you meet a peer somewhere else. Then you meet C-level somewhere completely else. And then after certain rounds, you have probably met half of the world.
Yeah.
And then you start to talk about the formalities, and you start to negotiate about the salary. And from my personal experience, I found that always extremely challenging to talk about salaries and formalities, and then trying to bridge like cultural gaps, trying to understand how certain things are being perceived in certain cultures. I found that incredibly hard. What is your advice to candidates about this cultural gap in interview processes?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, because like, I have seen candidates like who don't negotiate at all. You say them and they will agree to it. I have seen candidate who will negotiate, and I've seen it for myself. Just to let you know, I have seen, and this is also there's a chapter called like offer, and I discuss all these things in that chapter. So when you have leverage, right? When you have another offer letter in your hand, then you have a leverage to negotiate with confidence. Then when you can simply walk away from something, then you have the biggest leverage in your pocket. Then you can negotiate the best. Then, because you're not afraid that you will lose something, because you have something on the other side, right? But when you have one offer letter and you just made it by fluke, or you just it became your lucky moment that you got the job, then of course you will accept it. And that's what preparation comes into picture. And in terms of cultural differences, of course, it also depends. For example, the interview I got rejected for, I was telling you, the person, and Europe is very diverse, so, and English is not a native language to a lot of people here, right? If I speak in certain way or accent the way I speak at the moment, maybe I was speaking something differently a few years ago, it is very much possible that they feel difficult to understand you because you speak slowly or you speak in a different accent, and that becomes a problem you know so I learned it in a hard way, and now what I do is when I'm interviewing, I try to ask a counter question to say, is it so? Are we on the same page? Do you understand? Or repeat myself once more, so to make sure that the other person understand what I'm trying to say. So yeah.
I think that's something very important to consider. We are all talking not in our native language.
Yes.
And this is like a burden for everyone. And during an interview process, when both parties are trying to sense small differences, the how you choose words is so important. But in the end, we are like, it's broken because it's not even our native language, and it requires really good communication skills to grasp that.
Communication skills such as describing the word that I don't have in my mind right now, for example. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you try to make up things so that the message comes across clearly, but it doesn't happen because it's not your native language, right? And it's the same with on the other side. If I am a native speaker, let's say, and I use some fancy words and the other person doesn't even know about it, then from your perspective, you did your best, but there's no use of that best performance if the other person cannot receive it. So I always suggest like people to speak slowly, use the simple language possible, don't use words from Shakespeare's play or from TV series like Suits. Keep it simple. That's the mantra for life.
Yeah. I can agree to that. What I always pay attention to is how structured someone is in what he or she says. And I don't pay that much attention to fancy language, because it's so much more important to get your message across.
Yeah.
That's
That's
definitely
a really
true.
good point. Yeah.
So Bhupinder, this is one of the mistakes that you have experienced that you may have did, like not like basically not adapting your accent to the local people, basically. What are other mistakes that you have seen that people do?
In the interviews, you will be very surprised that a lot of people, especially I've seen it for the senior people, because they have been working in a big role, big company, and they come into that dilemma that they know it all or they understand everything somehow. When you ask them basic questions, then they struggle because they overestimate the power of their memory. And what happens is then they try to recall that simple concept. They can tell it, but they struggle. And then you're like, you're working at a senior position, like what happened? Then the interviewer is confused. So not brushing up your skills, not I think everyone should feel humble enough to take into consideration that you can forget. We are human, we are not machines. Things could happen. There could be like pressure situations in life. You sometimes you're not able to perform better, but for that to perform when it's needed, let's say now Olympics is going on, right? Everyone is giving their best and trying to give their best performances. What has gone into to make it happen is preparation. So a lot of people don't come prepared. Some people are late, not on time. That's that's okay. Things could happen. Some systems are not working, internet not working. That's also fine. But I would also say, like, one of the mistakes I have seen is like telling something about your skills but not backing up with your examples. Like, I say, like, I'm very good in JavaScript, but I would never tell the projects I did. So how would the other person know, like, how good you are? So yeah.
On the other hand, this is also the job of a recruiter or of an interview partner to figure that out. And if you don't say something actively on your own as the applicant, I also think the interview partner should ask. So, Bhupinder, you mentioned you are so good at JavaScript. Like, tell me, how have you been using JavaScript in your last projects? This is such a simple thing.
Exactly.
Also to support the applicant in order to show their best side.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because not everyone is extrovert and not everyone is introvert, right? So people could be introvert and they find it difficult to tell, and that's all fine. We need all kind of people and all diverse people in the team, because it doesn't matter if you don't need to be the best in communication. Like, it's essential, but you don't need to be like a tech talk speaker to become an engineer. That's what I'm trying to say. But it's important to deliver with clarity. That's a skill. It takes time to learn, and yeah.
And this is something where preparation helps a lot.
Yes. So I remember, like, when I was starting in my career, of course you could speak about things, but to use right language is very important. There are jargons which there's not jargons, basically tech terms which tell that you know something about. Let's say I will ask an engineer, tell me about how memory in JavaScript works, and how inner functions will take care of the things, right? And if they talk about how it takes care but never tell that there could be use of closures, then I would think they would not know. But sometimes it could come across. So being on top of your technical lingo is very important when you're going for technical interviews, and preparations helps a lot for that.
It's interesting what you just said. When I, as a recruiter, talk to hiring managers or to the interview partners afterwards about their perception of the candidates, I always go nuts when they tell me, I don't know, I have a strange gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I hate
A gut feeling.
a gut feeling is something that I know it appears, but I always try to use data instead of the gut feeling. So there are a lot of questions that need to be asked in order to extract the data from the gut feeling. And I just figured that what you have said, not using certain words in order to show the expertise, might be just one example of how gut feeling is being established.
And this is when I do interviews. And I have candidates, and I usually take notes. And when I take notes, I usually use their words. So to have it as specific as possible, so that when later, like 2 days later, I will not remember every word. Yeah. But I will have some data set with their usage of words that I know, okay, they have used a certain lingo, and I know they have meant a certain thing this way. Yeah, of course, there is like my perception of how I receive it, but I can at least like distinguish the fact that I did not mess up like how a person has conveyed the message, right? And this is very important to me, that when I take notes as a hiring manager, that I use the candidate's words and not my own.
I do it the same. I even write down like quotes, like entire sentences that seem remarkable to me or that show a certain attitude towards things. And I'm just wondering, what will AI do to interviewing? Because there are certain tools available that take down notes automatically, but it's a matter of fact that it sticks to your memory much more if you write down the notes on your own, even by pen and paper or by keyboard. And if you allow AI to do this job, I'm wondering what it does to the impression that the recruiter or the interview partner has towards the candidate.
Yeah.
I can imagine, I don't know, I can just imagine the impression it leaves, it must be weaker from my perspective, because you haven't taken down the notes yourself.
I can tell you what's happening. So the AI is recording word by word, and of course, it needs to, like, since we're here in a world where we, like, the majority is not speaking native English, it will take words that the candidate didn't say, for example. And since we are having this word by word, it will not take out the key points. It may summarize something at the end. And this is not word by word. This is a summary. And the summary is based off training of the AI. So you don't have like the actual essence of the candidate speaking to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's also, you're absolutely correct. Sometimes like AI is trained on, like, streamline information. But what if the person is forgetting something and they're just roaming around a single concept but not coming to the point? Then the AI would struggle quite a lot to, maybe they conveyed their message, but they are not telling those few important points. But as an interviewer, you understand what they're saying. So in that case, humans are better, right? You cannot merely go with the notes from the AI. And I also believe, like, a lot of companies I have seen, and there should be a scorecard and a very defined objective success metrics.
Yes.
Which a lot of companies don't have. They go on gut feeling and subjectivity. Today I think he could have done better, but better than what?
It is such a surprise to me whenever I come to clients, no matter how old or young the companies are and how experienced the interviewers and hiring managers are. Like, most of them don't use scorecards at all, or don't use a structured interview guideline, meaning having the same set of questions asking to every candidate. Obviously, there is always an individual touch, out of the conversations, there might be additional questions. But one of the first questions I always ask is, how do you actually manage to compare candidates if you don't have a defined scorecard, if you don't have proper expectations formulated in a role description, if you don't have a set of questions? Like, what are you doing here? Are you like trying to drink coffee with a stranger? Is this what you are aiming for?
And scientifically proven, I'll tell you, it is very funny. Why I always say we need to have scorecards in all the organizations I have worked. Few of them had it, few of them didn't. And we worked on it, and then we came up with that. But because it's scientifically proven, if you're not feeling good in your gut, you could take decisions which you feel, because but it's not your mind thinking that. Because you're not feeling well, you'll just say, oh, I don't feel he was doing so good or she was doing so good in the interview. But that might not be the case, right? And some of the interviewers also forget that interviewing is a pressure oriented environment. People are not at their best, most of them. It takes a lot of time to get skillful and trained to perform and be your best, and it takes a lot. So yeah.
Same for the interviewers, actually. Many recruiters, and this is also what I did, interview 8, 10, maybe 12 people a day. This is insane, because after person number 3 or 4, you don't remember the first one anymore. You solely rely on your notes. And if you are not taking notes, or if you just use a few words here and there, I can tell you this was a complete waste of time for both parties.
Absolutely. And this is also something I want to tell this to organizations who are taking senior engineers or other engineers into the interview pipeline. please train and advise these engineers to also take as much notes as possible. Because often what I see as a hiring manager is that there are like 5 keywords, and like who can decide on these 5 keywords?
Yeah. And then if AI comes into play and you have this amount of interviews as hiring manager or as recruiter per day, or let's say you are also an engineer, you are like taken out of your project to spontaneously join this interview because someone got sick or something got postponed, whatever. How can you remember what the candidate left as an impression if you're not taking the notes on your own? And if it's not your words, that are captured in these notes, you're trying to make sense out of something that the machine tried to make sense of. So there are like certain layers in between. I'm very skeptical about that.
Yeah. I also feel when the organizations or the hiring process is such a way that you go on the gut feeling and you don't have a scorecard and you're interviewing quite a lot of candidates, and some of the organization I've also seen, they don't even care about giving the feedback. I've only seen 2 organizations in my decade long career which had, after every interview, the recruiter took time for a 15 minutes call to tell me how did I perform in the previous interview and what's coming next. It was so wonderful. I feel like I was going to the best organization in the world.
But you know the reasons behind, don't you?
No, I would be happy to know that. I mean, they would be less on time or whatsoever, but most
No,
of the people don't do it.
in many cases, it's simply a legal reason, because if you provide detailed feedback to a candidate, and not even if it's detailed feedback, the candidate might use that if he or she didn't got the job to sue you, saying, you mentioned that I'm not good at this, but I found out the person you actually hired is also not good at that. So why didn't I got the job? Now I want the job, and this is why I take you to court. This is unfortunately something that is legally possible in Germany, which makes the recruiters and the hiring managers very afraid of providing feedback at all.
Interesting.
They are all shitting their pants about that. For unfortunately good reasons, it happens a lot that, especially in the public sector, that people sue you if you hired someone else.
But if you are giving how I received it was on an audio call, right? So I don't think this allowed to record someone's audio call without their permission. So it's fine, and I've seen it done by one of the biggest companies in the world, right? So I interviewed for Amazon, right? So they gave me the interview feedback, like a short call, and told me, and I asked for it sometimes. So it's fine more sometimes.
Yeah. So again, here in Germany, it's mostly this legal reasons why proper feedback is not provided.
But I mean, it's a good point when Bhupinder says, like, you cannot record someone. Like, how can you, like, if you're not allowed to record someone, how can you take this into court? I think this is actually a really good thing to like get or ask feedback via a call, so that a recruiter like actually can speak also without being judged in the end, right?
Yeah.
I think this legal reason is just one side of the coin, of course. The second might be, and I know this is not a popular opinion, the second side of the coin might be that it is also an economical reason, that some organizations might ask themselves why to spend additional time on someone that didn't pass. And this leads to very bad candidate experiences, of course.
This is where we are.
As an organization, I would ask myself, no matter if someone passes or not, what could I do to design an interview process that is candidate-centric, to, let's say, make the candidate sit 1 week later on Auntie Annie's couch to talk about this splendid experience that he or she made. Even if they didn't got the job, it was still nice. It was authentic. It was personal. It was informative.
And
I think
makes
this
the
is how
person to apply like half a year later again, for example.
exactly.
Yep.
And he or she will tell their friends, and they are still leaving a good impression. And if we can consider that human beings are 10 times more likely to speak about negative experiences, just look on Glassdoor. Then about positive experience, this is something that could build up your employer brand slowly but constantly in such a positive way.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Exactly.
Sorry, I think we're talking a lot, and we missed about talking about your book.
But I guess it's also about the book, right? So if
Yes.
we're talking about like what if you're talking about recruiters and hiring managers, for example, Bhupinder, what other advice would you give to them?
I would say when you step into an interview as an hiring manager, remember that you were also on the other side of the table once, right? And consider the other person as human being, and make sure that you make them comfortable first. Do a small talk, chit chat here and there, and then tell them how it's going to be in terms of agenda, in terms of the structure of the interview, and then it should usually fine. I like to make sure when I'm all interviewing that I make sure the candidate is comfortable. It's not, they don't feel like they're being judged or anything. It's a, from my perspective now, after giving so many interviews and taking so many interviews, it's a conversation, basically. That's it. It's a technical conversation if you are applying for a technical role, and if you know and you're prepared, it goes well.
I always tell.
And
Oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead, please, no worries.
No, please.
So I was saying that in this book I have also added my experiences, not only successes but also the failures or the things which I learned in a subtle way, and the feedbacks I got. So this book also contains sections for freshers who are just starting up or people coming from boot camps, because I've had a lot of people who are coming from boot camps. I've worked with amazing engineers who have not came from computer science engineering degree, and they just came from boot camp or self-taught people, right? Amazing people are everywhere. So
Exactly, because computer science is about the science. Yeah, I create proofs that I got my algorithm works better than the ones that already exist. So
yeah,
and when I program something, and this is also what scientists distinguish us from from themselves, they talk about us as coders. So we are coders. We are programming stuff. So we are using their algorithm, their proven algorithm, to create programs. Yeah.
I think
So
this is like the wording already tells so much.
yeah, computer
exactly.
science and coding, which is why it enables people to learn coding, which we do.
Yes,
Yeah, we don't need to have a computer science degree to code.
you don't need it.
From my perspective, people who went through boot camps and are applying for their first jobs, I'm very often so sorry for them, because many boot camps, they create such a big expectation on the candidate side that once you have been through a 6-month or maybe 12-month boot camp to learn the fundamentals of, I don't know, Python, JavaScript or something else, then you're eligible to apply for a job or demand a salary of 60, 70, 80K. And 12 months ago, you had no clue about writing code at all. This is so mean because it requires a reality check during this application process that is very painful for a lot of people.
Yeah. But I would
Mhm.
also say, I would also add one more point here. It's a good point about it. But there's also, like how I have seen, if let's say I've given a task, and this person coming from boot camp, computer science engineering, or I don't know, I did computer science engineering, just for the information. If they complete the task, I really don't care about what they did or didn't do. Is the most important thing. They proved that they have those skills to get the job done. And and you're completely right. From a lot of boot camps don't do a good job in training people in such a way, because computer science engineering or coding or development is a hard skill, and it takes a lot of practice over
Mhm.
time, and some things you can only learn by practice and not by books.
This is
And
also what distinguishes us from scientists and coders, because a lot of times you see scientists that they write code, but it's not well written code. In many cases, let's say, yeah. And I also want to add here, there are companies who require the scientific approach, definitely. For example, in Google, when you when you want to innovate something, I want job description to distinguish if I really need to have a computer science degree or if not. Yeah. Do I really need to code only, or do I also need to prove that my algorithm works better than the stuff that's there before?
yeah.
Which is
For
just a
example,
nice example of telling everyone why a proper job description or role description is so important. And this is something you cannot just leave to AI to be generated in 20 seconds, because AI will always tell you computer science degree or something else,
Yeah.
even if it's not important for this
Yeah.
particular role.
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's talk about the book a little bit more. Where's the nice overlay? So, if you would like to get the book, we have a really nice special offer from Bhupinder. Bhupinder, would you like to tell us more about that?
Yes. So, first of all, it's a great opportunity knowing you both. It's been a great journey, and thank you so much for inviting me to the talk. So, I've seen your previous interviews and what value you bring to the audience. I'm very impressed by that. So, I thought of coming up with a special offer for your audience. So, whenever I launch my book, they will get a special discount or a free audiobook or whatever. I've not decided on that, but they will get something special. So if they sign up using this link, which is a short link for dyn.si/TTT, or they visit the website, and we can put the link in the comments of this event. And yeah, they will receive some special tips, some emails time to time, some practical insights on how to get the job. And yeah, and when I launch the book, they will be the first ones to receive the offer and also the copy. So yes, thank you so much for giving this opportunity.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Cool.
Will you go on a tour to sign your book as well?
Yes, that's the plan. That's the plan.
You should do that.
Yeah, that's the plan. So I am right now in the process of recording the audiobook. I am taking it a bit slow because it's summer, and you also I was sick as well in the last few weeks. But yes, so I'm not in a hurry. I took 3 years to get this done. I'm happy with what I came up with at the final. So I want to make sure I launch it in the right way and reach out to the right audience. So yeah.
I think in general, it's also such a wonderful idea to bridge the gap between candidates and the hiring companies. It's like my main takeaway. I think there are like just few books helping applicants or engineers to apply and to get the job they actually want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And since you have been on both sides of the table, on the hiring side and on the applying side, I think this is really great to deliver those insights and to always remember yourself and the other parties how it is to change seats.
Yeah. And a lot of people, believe me, I have seen a lot of people, when they come on the hiring side, they they expect a lot of perfectionism from the other side. It's so unfair. And when they come on the other side, then they ask for, hey, it should be more lenient. I mean, I understand there is certain metrics to match a success, and that's what I always say. If you want to climb a Mount Everest, you would have to become that person who can climb the Mount Everest. The Mount Everest would never come down, right? Same is for any opportunity in life. So, for example, if you want to go to a big company, big tech companies, the opportunities I got, those were Mount Everest as well at some time for me, right? But I prepared myself. I took time. And I also, for people who are just starting in, I would like to give you a tip. If you are ready to work hard for 6 months, then only, and that too consistently and persistently, then only expect something magical happening in life. Less than that is just dreaming. No results less than that. That's how I have realized in my life.
Bhupinder, you have mentioned Amazon and Google, and I know from experience that those companies, they use a certain interview method, which
Yes.
also becomes more and more popular here in Germany, and I have implemented that with many of my clients' companies. This method is called behavioral interviewing.
Exactly.
They're using the STAR method, meaning they are asking the applicant to provide a certain situation, the task, the action that they took, and the result that they have achieved.
Yeah.
And when I was interviewing applicants, I saw many of them struggling with this interview method. What is your advice? How do you think applicants can prepare for that?
So this is very true, because I was also struggling with that method. So I come up with my own framework, which is smaller, which is called bar method. And it's not about the drinks and the beers in Germany. Believe me, it's about how you can answer your question in the right format. So it's basically background action result. That's called bar. And to know more how you apply that, you would have to read the book. So I explain it in detail how it's done. And there are other frameworks as well, which is one is called for solving the coding interviews. For example, when you are in front of the person, how they expect you to answer and approach the problem and explain them. So I come up with a framework called praise. So if you remember praise, then you are sorted for it.
Bar, praise, I'm wondering what comes next.
Yeah.
So from my perspective as an interviewer, when thinking about the STAR method, I think one of the most common misconceptions is actually that you want people to deliver a story where they have magically succeeded and achieved whatnot. What I always pay attention to is, even if they failed, what were the learnings? What would they do differently? And how do they describe their own role in that situation? What kind of support did they got? What did they ask for, and what not? But most important are the learnings. Is this person likely to repeat the same mistakes?
Yes.
And remember, we have in Germany, we have some tech stars that became famous because of failing. One of them is Thielen.
Exactly. So it's not about failing for the first time. It's just the most important question: is this person likely to repeat the same mistakes all over and over? And of course, I'm always paying attention to, is the person answering the questions in a structured manner or not, or is they pointing to this and there and there. And once you manage to make clear that what you have learned out of this situation, and if you are able to deliver that in a structured manner, perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
Definitely.
On the other hand, and this is the reason why I love this method so much, as an interviewer, it is possible to identify lies. I interviewed someone that's a couple of years ago, but this is really a classic, who was a program manager at a very, very big company, and he claimed to be the mastermind behind their strategy for smart home devices. And I thought, well, fantastic. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Just tell me how you did it, and you will pass to the next stage. So I kept asking, and I used like situation, task, action, result. Tell me of the, and he was kind of like not really providing too much details. So I had to ask follow-up questions, like a proper detective, but not, making it an interrogation. And it turned out that the mastermind behind the strategy of smart home devices of this very well-known company did only one thing. And he claimed to be the consultant to the board members. The thing that he did was sending a single email of which he never received an answer. Nothing was implemented. It was just a single email that he wrote. And this is exactly why I do this situation, task, action, result, to identify when applicants are trying to make small things very, very big. But for the candidates who are really telling about things that actually happened, it can be also a very good opportunity to shine in the brightest light ever.
Yeah, that is absolutely true, because what you are saying, I have seen is like people sometimes give examples which are half baked. Maybe I don't judge on like maybe they are true or false, but if I don't get the information, I see it as like they're lying, more or less. It's shady. It seems like shady. And the most I always say, I said it in a previous event as well. The most difficult question which comes in an interview is the question which comes after your answer, because that counter question, if you're not ready for it and if you're not truly done it, you are then speechless. And I've seen many candidates be speechless because they said something and I asked, okay, then how did you do that, or asked particular term about it, and they are like, oh, I don't know about it, or I am forgetting about it. It's like it just feels, you can understand what I'm saying, right? So
it leaves a very strange impression.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. We are already at the end. Bhupinder, I would like to ask you a last question. What was the most positive interview that you have experienced?
Positive in the sense of getting an offer, or positive in the sense of experience?
Experience.
Yeah,
maybe there was a different like that you didn't get an offer for, that you liked even more. I don't know.
Yes, I mean there are companies as well which I got rejected, and I really respect their like way of interviewing and how they interacted with me. And those were the companies I was talking initially that I got, but I got an offer from them, luckily. So I was getting, and I worked for them, one of the company, that's Revolut. Their hiring process is amazing, I could say. At least at that time it was, when I was getting hired. So the recruiter basically scheduled a 10 minutes 15 minutes call after every interview round, and he shared with me what was my score and how what was my score and how do he feels about me progressing in the further, right? And I got a very good idea, like let's say I didn't perform good in one interview round, I got an idea like I need to now buckle up and get the things better. And that gives you a very good idea, because sometimes you overestimate your ability and sometimes you're in the dilemma that I did amazing, but there are factors which could lead to, like for example, someone not understanding your language or your things, right? Then you might come back home and cheer up and enjoy and celebrate, but the game is already different on the other side. So feedback helps. I always say, like, give feedback. 5 minutes, 10 minutes call is no big deal. I mean, if somebody is recording you in Germany, and first of all, it's not allowed, if they go to court, I think they will be in trouble themselves first. So I think it's human thing, right? It's a human thing. People, a lot of candidates I have seen, like after the interview is just getting over, they will ask you, how was it? What do you feel about it? Can you tell me a bit about it? You know, you've seen it like in the interviews, and you cannot tell them. It's the protocol, is the process, and so on. But people ask that. People are curious. Their heart is pumping until they get the result.
There's a lot of demand for feedback. A lot.
Exactly.
And I think we shouldn't forget that there's always the possibility of rejection, right?
Yes.
But when rejecting someone, it should be done in a human way, simply because if someone gets rejected, it is like a matter of fact that the same areas in your brain are getting active than when experiencing physical pain. So it's just a matter of treating someone as a human being, rejecting, but in a human way, explaining, giving some thoughts, giving some advices of how to do better next time.
Yes.
Otherwise, you have people sitting 1 week later at Auntie Annie's couch and, speaking very badly about you for good reasons.
Exactly. Okay. So that was Bhupinder with his super nice book, Interview Champion, that I'm looking forward to. I will pinpoint that link for myself, and I will order it very soon.
Me too.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think I will send you the copies myself. Don't worry. Whenever I launch, a signed one. Yeah.
Yeah, please do that. And for the next session, we look forward to the topic of how to thrive innovation in organizations. So we already just glimpsed it today, and next time we will go really deep into this. Thank you very much, Bhupinder. We will see each other then in 2 weeks for the new topic.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Have a lovely day, everyone. Bye-bye.